Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Grey Man Profits for the Advanced Learners, and today is part 3 in asset allocation to building a successful portfolio. Let's get started. So, in the last few videos, I discussed, of course, the difference between a high income asset and a low income asset, such as hedge funds and, let's say, bonds. And then the next question is, of course, if you're an investor, you have to ask, what is the time frame I'm working with? Am I going for a short term or long term? And secondly, do I want to make a lot of money or do I want to make consistent money? And then you have to ask yourself, what is the risk margin I am okay with? So in a recession, of course, things get turned on their heads. So let's see the 3 different types of survival scenarios that these 3 portfolios might have gone through. Of course, if you chose that you want to become rich, fast, and not much security, you would fall under the greed. This individual has 90% of his assets in high income assets and only about 10% in the lower income. So let's say that he has a ridiculous amount of S&P 500 stock and he owns a little bit of gold. On the average year, he gets great returns. Amazing. He has the highest index, he has the highest performance review, and unfortunately, he has a little bit of low security. If it's a bad year, it might fluctuate a little bit. But for the most of it, he's making good money. When a recession hits, this individual has gone from making good money per year to his 90% of his portfolio is underperforming now. And what remains is the 10% that is not enough for dividends to cover what he used to be making. In other words, his stock portfolio is going to crumble. The second one, this individual was a little bit more skeptical, and hence the name, the skeptic. This individual has 50% of his assets in high income assets and 50% in the low income. He owns S&P 500 stock, and he owns, let's say, a few treasury bonds, and hell, let's chuck in some gold. This individual has a 50-50 split. Of course, his returns are nowhere near the first option. He does not have as much capital needed to, of course, outperform anyone with a larger high stake or high income portfolio. But he has quite a lot of stable assets, meaning that he gets balanced returns and good security. In a recession, these are going to save him. The standard return from these lower assets covers the amount that he would have been making from here that is now produced a loss. And now he is only losing a little bit or holding on until the recession ends. And of course, at last, we have the survivor. I'll tell you about that in part 4.